from Jeff for us to consider for later?
No. This is the one
I'll
Jeff-
discuss it
Jeff
during my
made.
comment.
Jeff's gonna discuss.
Let me know, Madam Clerk.
Yep. We're good to go.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the City of North Pole regular meeting of the North Pole City Council for October 2nd, 2023. Here live in the City Hall chambers, also being recorded on streaming with KUAC and on Facebook. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sir, Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mrs. Clock,
Here.
Mr. Cromer,
Here.
Mr. Skips,
Here.
Mrs. Welch. Here. Mr. Jacobson,
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here. If you'd all please rise, and Madam Clerk will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Ms. Welch will give the invocation. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for invocation.
And Lord, we come before you today as the city council, come before you to ask you that you are with us in all the decisions that we make, that we may make the right decisions for our citizens, for our employees, and for ourselves as we go about doing the city's business. We ask that you, especially with our first responders, as they start amping up on these new winter conditions that are going to be out here, that you're with those people that they've already dealt with, that were in accidents today. There were several of them out there. We ask that you heal those people, mind, body, and soul. We ask that you are with us in anything that we do. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. On our agenda, if you bring the agenda back up, Madam Clerk, we're going to go to item 4, an action item for approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Jacobson, second by Clack. Any discussion on the agenda?
Move to amend the agenda
State the amendment.
to add to our consent agenda item 11A and under new business 12B.
Second.
Moved by Welch, seconded by Skips. Any discussion? On the amendment, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing no changes. Now, on the agenda as amended,
Okay,
call the
Mr.
roll.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Cromer. Mr.
Yes.
Cromer. Okay, sorry. Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone to change the vote? Seeing no changes, the congratulations, the agenda is now approved. We go to item 5, an action item, approval of the minutes from the September 18th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Welch, seconded by Keller. Any corrections, additions, subtractions, anything? Please call the question, Madam Clerk, on the
Mr. Cromer?
minutes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone change the vote? So that's unanimous. Congratulations. The minutes are now approved. We go to item 6, that's me, and that is the communications from the mayor. Since we last met on September 18th, I won't go through everything, but the most important and stuff that's coming up, things that are going to impact the city. So thank you, Mr. Skips. He must have carried the word somehow to North Pole High School after our September 18th meeting. But I had received a message from Mr. Opie, the athletic director at North Pole High School, to invite me to the to the Mayor's Bowl. Now, I was told Monday night in the meeting that the Mayor's Bowl was going to be on a Saturday night, so I canceled a private engagement I had for Saturday. But then when Mr. Opie called and left me a voicemail, it was not on Saturday, it was to be on Friday. Well, I was already scheduled to be at, not the Mayor's Ball, but the Air Force banquet for its 76th birthday. So I wasn't the only person that had to be there either. The other side of the Mayor's Bowl, that city they call Fairbanks, that mayor had to be there with me too. Because that was something we had agreed to in RSVP more than a month in advance. So that's how that was. Let me tell you about the 76th birthday of the Air Force that we did celebrate at the Thunderdome at Eielson. I was very honored to be seated at the table with not just the wing commander and his wife, but the guest speaker. And she's retired after 31 years from the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant Shelley Cohn. Shelley survived the Khobar Towers terrorist bombing. And she gave us a really down from deep in her heart, very touching story of what that did to her. And you could imagine post-traumatic stress disorder and everything. She actually felt like she may have lost her job when she was a senior airman just because she was a victim of a terror attack, that she was medically unable to do her job for about 9 months, but they rehabilitated her and she actually came to do 31 years of service. And what I thought was really incredible was that she has been going out bearing her heart about that event and what it meant to her, and that she told us that very night that would be the last time she would talk about it in public. So I felt very honored to be there for that. So that was on 9/22. That was on a Friday night. On Monday night, I had to be back at Eielson because the Undersecretary of the Air Force, Secretary Jones, was with us. She had her entourage and of course the wing commander, Paul Townsend, but there was very small number because it was the Civilian Advisory Board. And those of us who were on that serve in different capacities. So we were the only ones invited. So there may have been as many as 16 of us there. I'm here to tell you that one of the issues that was brought up by General Nahom, that's the 3-star Lieutenant General that runs Alaskan Air Command, 11th Air Force, and NORAD, Alaskan Region. He gets to wear a hat for every star on his shoulder. The thing that's at issue here is whether they're going to bring the KC-135s as an added mission up anytime soon. That may have to be delayed simply because there's not enough housing. It's not that simple, but that's the primary reason. We have to find a way to induce people to come up here for housing. So the Undersecretary understood that I'm working with the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, Ravi Chaudhary, and he'll be up here. They're launching out 12 or 13 October. They should be in the area around the 14th of October. And he's launching out with the Secretary of the Air Force. 26th Secretary is Mr. Kendall. So they're coming up here. So that's going to be by invitation only to be at that meeting. But he knows that the two of us are working on a public. So it's 3 ways. One of the parts of the public is the city of North Pole. The other is the Air Force. The private are the builders, investors, homeowners, things like that. So we're supposed to find a way to see what kind of help we can get to move this along a little bit better than it has been, because we don't want to see the mission suffer. So that's coming up. On October 26th, we just got a correction to it today. So if you've got anything that said October 27th, it's October 26th. That's a Thursday at 3:30 in the afternoon down at Fedco building, Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation. They're reinitializing the Housing Task Force. It has been laying dormant since May 30th. So that's going to be reinitialized. So please don't have to have an invitation to it, but I'll have the clerk send out a reminder to be there Thursday, October 26th at 3:30 at Fedco. On October 10th, that's next Tuesday, not tomorrow, but a Tuesday from tomorrow, week from tomorrow, will be the combined heat and power meeting that we have at 10 o'clock. It's usually an hour long, maybe a little bit longer. And what's still in the works there, but it's the hardest, slowest thing moving, is to get a power purchase agreement from Golden Valley and to get a firm price from IGU, what they'll sell us natural gas for, to see if we can make a go of it. So those are the things that are just still just floating around in motion. Combined heat and power. If it's ever going to happen, we have to have a big customer like Golden Valley, but we have to make sure we get a good price for natural gas. Those commodities are heating up, no pun intended, for combined heat and power. And let's see, I've got something that's coming up here on October 14th. Trying to remember what that is now. I wrote it down, but I didn't write down what it is. Well, if I find out, I'll send it out. So as we're still under my section here, I'm very proud to have the clerk introduce who the council has hired to be our clerk in training. Madam Clerk, you want to introduce our special introduction to our new employee tonight?
Yes, absolutely. So everybody, I'm sorry, I can't really turn the cameras, but this is Emily Braniff, and she is going to be your new city clerk. So we're also going to do a little swearing in.
This is just a few weeks short of 2 years since you were sworn in.
Emily Braniff. I, Emily Braniff. Do solemnly swear or affirm. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That I will support. I will faithfully.
You have to come around. Welcome. Welcome home. Thank you. Congratulations. She catches on fast. Don't forget the staff over there.
I'm just shaking everybody.
That's good.
So while we're still on mayor's comments, I think it's interesting to note that tomorrow we have an election and this place will be transformed into precinct 175 by the magic of ELF helping to set the chambers up into a voting precinct. And I think it's interesting that we're in our 70th year. I don't know what we did for the election way back then. Do you, Jeff? Neither of us were here in 50.
There was a wooden box constructed that I think we still have somewhere. That was our official ballot box.
It's in my office with the absentee ballots in it.
So how many absentee ballots do you think we've had so far?
Oh, gosh, we had a record number this year. Do you remember how many it was? Yeah.
Early voting, absentee voting, yeah. So that's pretty good. So, and we have in our midst tonight, two candidates for the wonderful council here, Mr. Larry Church III and Mr. Benny and the Jets Williams. So, yeah. That's what I always called him when I saw him in the hallway at the station at Fairbanks, all the years I worked there. So with that, congratulations for getting the city this far along, 70 years. So that ends my comments. So that takes us on to the next item. Any council members' questions of the mayor?
I do have one, and
Sure.
I meant to talk about it at the committee of the whole. It's in regards to the mile 351 interchange at 12 Mile here in North Pole. They had a open house on July 7th, 2022, and it talks about alternatives, and in the packet, the only thing I could see was that they provided off the website was the alternative 2A. And I was just wondering if that's the final design alternative that they chose.
And, and that's from last year, 22.
Yeah, 2022, they had an open house, and then this came out saying that why I got off their webpage that talked about the alternate 2A.
I guess I'll have to take a IOU on that because the next time I meet on the third Wednesday of this month with the Fairbanks Area Street Transportation Policy Board,
Right.
I'll get that clarified with the executive director, because I
Okay.
know there's a lot of discussion going back and forth about how this is actually gonna work out, and I'm not sure, having not seen that.
Yeah, I just came across it the other day as I was cleaning through some paperwork, so. this
You,
is-
you do that too, you keep paperwork
Yeah.
like I do.
Okay, that's it, my question.
Okay, I'll find out, and I'll thank you for letting me have that. Let's move on in the agenda here. We have citizens to give comment. Madam Clerk, who has signed up? Anyone online signed up for citizens?
Nope, I
comment?
don't have anybody online, but I do have two people in with us tonight. Michael is the first one. I'm sorry, I can't read your last name.
You might pull the microphone towards you, Mike.
Hi, my name's Mike Gendro. I live at 1105 St. Nicholas Drive here in North Pole. I've been here 40 years. And what I would like to do after the election's over tomorrow, I would like to make a proposal or a suggestion to the city council that you make a change to election ballots and provide voters with a little more information. Since I've been here so long, I know a lot of people, and in the last week, I've had several people at Safeway, whatever, stop me and they go, "Do you know any of these people running for city council this year?" And I go, "No." "Do you know anything about them?" "No." They said, "Well, how can we get information or find out who we think would be the best person for me to vote for?" Because when I cast a ballot, I want to vote for someone that I think will do a good job and shares the same views that I have on the way things should be run up at City Hall. And I said, I'll be honest with you, my wife and I don't even know who we're going to vote for right now. Well, today I contacted all three candidates. And I had one candidate actually got back and contacted me. And I talked to him a little bit. And the main thing I wanted to know was, who are you registered? What party are you registered with? And the person told me. And it's not the same party I'm registered with, but after talking to the person, I found out I had some common things in common with that person. And I decided that I'm going to vote for that person tomorrow. But I know I've had other people tell me, just like in national elections, higher state government elections, you always see a party affiliation with a candidate. And there are people here in North Pole that would like to see that in the local city elections, because to them, that's the only information they have. And it's important because they tell me, I don't want to waste my ballot. I don't want to waste my vote. I want to at least get somebody who's politically aligned with me and might have the same views as I do. So I'm suggesting we start doing that on our local elections for any candidate.
May I reply to that?
Pardon?
May I reply to that?
Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you. And then I'll have the council reply with what they know as well. Mr. Jeanro, there's a Alaska statute that says that those of us who are municipal shall be nonpartisan. So we cannot put anything behind our names. The only way I could properly represent everybody in this city is to be nonpartisan. So these are state requirements, state statute. And so that's why you'll see no one running for Fairbanks or the borough or the city of North Pole, any municipal level. You don't see that. And now it could become known what we are, but so are you aware of that? That's what I'm asking.
Well, that was one of the questions I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you earlier tonight.
Yeah.
We didn't get to that one yet.
Yeah.
But-
But I will say, are you concerned that when they had these candidate forums, for whatever reason, they went around the city of North Pole and didn't invite us to it this year?
No, I don't have concerns with that. I just think there should be a way to have a little more transparency to the voters about people that are running, to indicate to them who they might or want to vote for, because in all honesty, we have a notorious reputation here for having very low turnouts in our elections, our local elections. And I'm just thinking if we had more transparency, yeah, we might have more people turn out and want to become more involved with our local government.
But you are aware of, now you're aware, at least, of what I'm telling you is true. It's, part of what, I don't know why the statutes are prescribed that way. But I know that from two of the people here, I know, I've seen them out and about and I've seen their signs, whatever. I'm supposed to phrase everything like we're playing Jeopardy in the form of a question. I'm trying to say, are you aware of this? Or are you aware of that? But, do you think that, there's any way that you would want to get in touch with the state legislature to change that? And do you
Well,
think
yeah,
that
I
would
can
help?
do that. I've
Yeah.
got another issue I need to talk to them about anyway for citizens' rights in this state in accordance with the Supreme Court, but that's a different
Sure.
story. But what really boggles my mind is not being able to list the party they're registered with. Is you folks, I guess it's probably by law, you make them go through this financial disclosure with
Sure
you.
do.
And that is extremely personal information to me. I'm not gonna go up to any candidate, hey, how much money you got? You know, what are you worth nowadays? You make them go through that, but you can't list their party affiliation. That's kind of crazy to me.
And sir, you've lived here longer than me. You said you've lived here 40 years. Correct?
What's
More
that?
than 40, you've lived here more than 40 years, correct? So are you aware that there was, the Chamber of Commerce used to hold the candidates forum? Did you ever go to those?
No.
I did. And so every, even as a voter, I went to them to learn what I could, but as a candidate for council or whatever, I just want to know if you were aware of that. And so now that they're restarting the Chamber of Commerce, maybe they'll get onto that we actually have forum. There were forums, are you aware, that used to happen right here in these chambers?
Well, it sounds like I probably wasted your time and I'm sorry about
No,
that.
I have to ask it like it's a question to make sure that.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody have a discussion, Ms. Welch does.
So, thank you for coming and
Yeah.
bringing that up. Are you aware that every candidate has their own bio that's created on
Yes,
our website?
Yes, and I did research that for 45 minutes today and the information that I was looking for, I could only find it on one person.
And that would be the candidate's choice to whether it's on there or not, unfortunately.
And that's one of the things that bothers people for election is it seems like some people don't want to be transparent. And when people run, they tend to make comments to the newspaper. This is another comment I got from somebody in the television station. Everybody talks in circles. They talk generically because they don't want to offend anybody and lose a vote from either side. And nobody specifically tells the voters what they intend to do as a city council person or what they want to do to represent them to make things better. So it's really hard to figure out who you want to vote for.
I hear you. I'll turn to my pro tem. He was mayor when I was a rookie. So what do you know, Jeff, that we could explain to Mike here?
Well, I think you were correct in saying that we had a lot more political forums We had them at the senior centers many years ago where they would have a lunch with candidates there to talk about what they wanted to do to improve the community. When KJMP had television broadcasting, that was something that happened every year. The candidates would have a forum there. And then also on over the coffee cup, the Saturday morning radio show, candidates could go there and speak. As far as transparency, I think, having an R, a D, or I, or partisan after your name, it could be meaningful information for some people, but that really doesn't tell you what kind of person they are until you really talk to them like you did on the phone and figure out what they were really wanting to do and what their background is and moving forward. So that's all I could really add to the discussion.
If I went on one of the, it was either the newspaper or the TV channel put a little disclaimer. I'm not going to mention the person's name, but one of the candidates running for city council didn't even respond to them and give them their bio information or anything. So that right away told me when I read that, why would I want to vote for that person? They don't even act like they really want to be a city council person.
Well, I hope I didn't give you the idea that you were wasting my time, because you weren't. It's part of the democratic process. But in some regard, we're following what statute establishes for us to do. I went door to door. I always thought it was necessary for me to go door to door. That's just information. I'm sure not everyone thinks they have to do that.
Yeah, we just never get anything at this level on people. And if you're a conservative, I guess you're happy because the conservatives, they put out a thing now for school board and borough and everything, advising people to align with them, please vote for these people.
Sure.
But
If
you don't
they're-
get anything at this lower level.
Ms. Welch?
I don't know. Do you recall me coming and speaking to you before I ran for council? I remember having a discussion with you in your driveway.
Did we?
Yes, we did.
Was I mean to you?
No, you were not mean to me at all.
You must have
Uh,
been with the right party. That's all I.
Well, I mean, we had a long discussion about things and I think maybe we need to foster that more in the city here. A lot of times we have only run myself and Mr. Cromer, who's on the video with us tonight. We came in together. There was only two of us running.
Yeah.
And so I guess either the thing is that you go in and you vote and you either choose those people or you choose not to choose those people. But I totally agree with you. We need to get people out more. We need to get that information, even if it does not include the R and the D and the I.
There's one thing I'll respond to Mr. Jacobson. I agree with him on. It really doesn't matter what your designation is politically. It is important to a lot of people because it does give you a little bit of view and ideas. But people, regardless of their political affiliation, if they can just sit down and discuss things like adults without screaming, yelling, burning, rioting, whatever, doesn't matter what their affiliation is. Because this country is so divided all over, people are scared, they're sick of a lot of stuff. If people just learn to sit down, even if you disagree, and talk like adults about it, things would just be a lot better all over.
Here, here.
Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mitch. Anyone else for comments? Not
Yes,
from
we
the-
have Ben Breeze with us also.
Ben, please come forward and state your name. You have already signed in, didn't you?
I did, sir.
Thank you, sir.
My
Just
name
state
is
your name. and-
Benjamin Brees. I live at 2446 Homestead Drive. I am actually right next to the park that he was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So first off, I'd like to start with some props and then I'll get to what I was going to talk about. I did say safety on there, but I would like to state the police, the house next to mine is derelict. They have done a phenomenal job policing it when people were breaking glass and things of that over in that nature. A couple of years ago, after they put in the multiplex that's right down the road from me. Oh yeah.
Yep.
When I had the multiplex put in just down the road from me, the entire sewer system from the neighborhood was backing up into my house. And that went on for a few months, but they were amazing once they got on point, and it's not been a problem since.
How long ago was that?
3 years ago, I believe. It was 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe three. But yeah, they had just put in that big multiplex and the pipes were too thin and they froze and my bathtub was basically a toilet for the better part of 2 months, which is fine. I'm a diehard Alaskan. I've been here my entire life. That's just the way it is, man. I remember having to go out and get the blue foam for the outhouse so you didn't freeze to the seat. So does not bother me one bit. But I just wanted to say, just thank you. The playground looks amazing. The playground right now, the new equipment is insanely good. The kids go out and drum and stuff. I'm directly affected by it. I was a day sleeper for a very long time. And kids out there playing the drums and chimes have no problem with it. Love it, would love more of it. And that kind of leads to my final point, which is we need more safety on that road. I know there was a bike path put in recently, which is phenomenal, but we have a ton of kids now because we have an 8-plex or 12-plex or whatever it was put in right next to me. And we've had other housing projects built further down the road. And we have a massive increase in traffic of children coming and going. And as soon as it gets dark, you can't see a damn thing out there. You can't see 5 feet in front of your face because there's no lights. The speed bumps might as well not exist. I have the speed cam right there, and I swear if I set up a webcam, I can make that dude over there rich just sending in license plates of people doing 40 to 50 miles an hour down that road. They get a lifted truck and it does not matter. I am not speaking against F-150s on a lift kit, but once you get 2 inches off the ground, those speed humps don't even touch you. Like I see people, they'll hit the first one right after the stop sign. They speed up to 40, they slow down just enough to get over the next one, and then they're off the road. So we need something to just stop that, or an alternative would be something like a crosswalk, much like they have at Hutchinson, where when the kids go to cross the street to get to the bike path, they can hit a button, red lights come on, it stops them. All of these things would negatively affect my quality of life. I'm willing to give up all of that quality of life to protect these children. There are days when I will sit at the end of my driveway, when I know people are getting off work, when there's a bunch of kids at the park, and I will walk out and tell people to slow down because there are children present, and you never know when one's going to shoot out on a bike. Or more recently, and again, not complaining, I grew up out here, I rode 4-wheelers and stuff all the time. They use them to get around out there, and every once in a while you got a young kid on a 4-wheeler jumping across the road to get to the ditch. I don't have an issue with that at all. You know, they're getting a half mile, 2 miles home to get home. That's fine. It's cold, go home. But with the kids walking to school, that's a main throughway now, basically. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I just lived through whoever the sewage company is that's right around the corner from me, putting in a parking lot over the summer for every day from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. all day, earthquakes and beeping all damn day. And I was trying to sleep through that. And I don't have a problem with that. But that does lead to the final point I'd like to bring up is currently my neighborhood is listed as a GU, and this is probably more for the borough because they handle zoning. But with the city council's backing, that might come with a little bit more pressure on them. It needs to be remarked residential. I'm not looking for the ouster of the businesses that already exist along that roadway. I'm asking that no further large businesses that are going to be driving semis up and down a road that is for no throughway for trucks is made to be no throughway for trucks. They're honey wagons. They pump up in the morning about 7 and then they get out of there. I don't have a problem with that. I grew up with a fuel truck driving dad who had a truck that sat in our driveway when he was doing call outs. But it does become a safety issue when you have those guys leaving in the morning and kids going to school and there's semis running up and down the road all day. I don't mind the noise, but it's just safety concerns. There needs to be lights, at least on that corner at night. And there needs to be some way to slow down the traffic on that road because it is just ridiculous. It's enough that today I came in because last night I saw someone doing 55 down my road.
Doing what down that road?
55.
Oh, I believe.
Yeah, it's just a straight drag. And on top of that, wasn't there recently an incident with a child out at they call it DK, the fire pit out there? There was just recently a murder out there. I mean, we bring light to the dark to get rid of evil. Why is my road darkened inside the city? I mean, it's pitch black out there. If I turn my outside light off and stuff off my porch, you'll fall down my porch onto the ground because you can't see in front of your face. It's that dark out there. So it's just my thought. I mean, I know it's a project. I know it costs money, but I do think that it is a very valid safety concern, especially for the children and especially in winter, because if that park's going to be accessible in the winter, which right now it kind of is, kind of isn't, depending on how much the kids want to put effort into clearing it. there's just no safety there, especially for that road crossing. Specifically, if they are on the bike path, they have to cross the road to get to the park. There is no way to not be on a roadway and get to that park right now. And I'm not suggesting an overpass or anything. I think if people just drove the speed limit and were aware, then we'd be fine.
Mr. Breeze, are you aware I have an ordinance that we did enforce against a particular builder we won't name? We put into effect on March the 4th, 2019.
Are you speaking about the ordinance about derelict buildings or?
No,
you can-
Talk about, people, with the big trucks going up and down.
Oh, okay. I know,
And
I was,
hours that they can and can't.
I was not aware. And like I said, the hours are not the problem. I'm not worried about the businesses that are already there. I'm cool with the honey wagons being there, even though they just put in a parking lot and brought in more trucks. I'm saying that what happens when the next guy down the street wants to buy a cheap piece of property that's got, like, say the one next to me, that's got a derelict house on it. He buys it, decides to pave it and starts rolling in semis. You know, I don't necessarily want to live in an industrial yard, especially that close to a school and a park and all these other things. It's not really an anti-business stance. It's more of a, this is, if we're going to make a community, as you said, for the Air Force to bring in more families, families aren't going to want to live somewhere where the house next door is sewage pump trucks. They're just not. That's just not, that's not something, when you're driving in at 7 o'clock in the morning with a realtor and all, once you see is 3 semis roll past you and they all got poop truck written on the side of them, nobody wants to live there. That's just how it is. And it's not meant to be rude or mean or anything like that. I have, again, no problem with anybody living on that road. And I suffer, I say that I suffer more than others. I live in kind of a crappy trailer. I fell on some hard times and my house has no sound dampening at all. I hear every noise outside, every beep that went on. No problems with it at all, like none whatsoever, but the safety of the community and moving forward, making that someplace that more people want to live versus making it someplace where people see it as a kind of in North Pole. We can get the privileges of being in North Pole because we've got our trucks there, but our business is actually in Fairbanks. So that money's going to Fairbanks, but we're housing our trucks in North Pole. So we're getting the road maintenance and everything over here for our trucks, but our business is over here we're not paying taxes in North Pole. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not like arguing that they should have to pay tax or anything like that. I'm just bringing it to an awareness that the safety issue is definitely one because of the speed down the road. The lights are definitely an issue because there's days when the kids, I'll leave my outside light on all night because I have 2 floodlights pointed out and I'll leave them on all day just because it lights up a little bit of the road in front of my house. Because you just literally can't see anybody when they're crossing the road. And if the kids are going to school, they have to walk down the bike path and then they have to cross the road to get to the bike path, and they have to cross the road to get off of the bike path. So they're crossing a roadway twice that is both dark and full of unsafe drivers. And that's not on you guys, the unsafe driving, or it's not on anybody in this room, but it is definitely a concern of mine going forward, especially now that I've seen, like, a couple of years ago, before they put in the multiplex, we'd see maybe like 5, 6 kids at the park. All summer, same 5, 6 kids. This summer, I can't even count how many kids are coming because they all live with their Air Force families at these new complexes that are being put in. So we're seeing an influx of children, a lot more kids are coming to the park, especially since you put in the instruments and stuff like that. They love since the city facilities put in the instruments and stuff, it's become more of a gathering ground for children. But it's just one of those things where the safety of the children is always my premier concern. And one last thing, I forgot to shout them out in the very beginning. Summit Church is amazing. They facilitated a clothes drive for clothing. My wife and I were able to drive around to impoverished neighborhoods in the Fairbanks today and drop over $1,200 worth of clothing off to children who need it for winter gear. Some of those were in North Pole, some of those were in Fairbanks, didn't really matter. We just got it where it needed to go. But Summit Church did a banger job getting that out into the public and helping us out on that. And it was just a beautiful thing to be a part of. But thank you for your time. I really apologize. I rambled a little bit there, but
Let me see if the council has anything. Anyone talk to Mr. Breeze here? Ms. Welch?
Just want to thank you for actually having a concern for our children and for bringing it to a little bit more to the forefront. I think we're all aware that there are issues on our roads. I had a honor riding with Officer Bloom for a day on his shift and saw a lot of those things. So hopefully we can get something going and get some kind of safety going for that.
But
Appreciate it.
I really appreciate that. My wife has been daycare. She's currently works for the Literacy Council and runs a reading program at Birch Park 1, which is on First Avenue. They had a gun incident today. So we had to deal with that. But we worked in and around children our entire lives. So, I mean, my children are now old enough to have their own children, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna look out for my neighbor's child. Like, so it's just one of those things that I wanted to bring to the attention of the council so that maybe it's something that you can look forward to fixing in the future or working towards in the future.
Thank you for coming in tonight. And I just wanted to commend you for sharing your concerns. A few decades ago, one of your former neighbors and residents in Highway Park, David Delaney, came into city council meeting and brought to our attention that the railroad track crossing on, I think it's Crossway, had no streetlights there. And so when you had the black oil tanks going there at night, it was really easy to not see the train and have a collision with them. And when he brought that to our attention, we immediately were able to put up the two streetlights that are on both sides of that railroad crossing to illuminate that. I thought by now Highway Park had streetlights. In fact, we're spending a lot of money upgrading our streetlights to LED. And so that probably should be an area that we look at as a project to get some transportation funds for street lighting.
My question to you is, because you mentioned the trucks and stuff, and my concern is there any moose or anything out at that time frame too, that the
We've-
kids are encountering at all since it's that black?
It's not as bad as it used to be. Before the residential housing went in, we'd have a mother that would calf every year in our neighborhood. And there were many times when I'd step out my front door and call work and be like, I'm gonna be 20 minutes late because there's a moose in my front yard.
Okay.
It's not nearly as bad now with the residential area. She's kind of pushed back over to that area where the bonfires and stuff happen back by the creek back there. But so it's not as bad, but they do still wander through.
All right.
They still do wander through.
Okay.
But not nearly as bad, but it would still be helpful in the mornings, especially when they get down towards that end of the road where the library and the school specifically are at, to have some lights, especially crossing the road, but especially because I grew up on Badger Road in between the slough and, Badger Road, and we had moose run through our yard all the time. And I remember being knocked down by moose when we were playing football and stuff. You turn around and there's just a moose right there. And that was in broad daylight. I can't even imagine what it'd be like in the dark. So it would definitely help with that as well.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Breeze. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate it and thank you.
Okay.
And if it's okay, if I excuse myself, man.
Yes, you don't have
So
to
much,
stay.
I appreciate it.
Anyone else for citizens' comments?
That's all I have.
Citizens' comments are now closed. We go to item 9, communications from department heads. Ms. Trish, do you want to go first?
Good evening, everyone. I don't have a lot today, but I did send out financials late today. I don't expect you to look at them yet, but if you look at them and you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. Those are for August. So we just finished the bank rec, or actually Michelle finished it like Thursday of last week. Meant to send them out earlier, but had a lot going on at the end of the week. So, and then we're getting ready to do budget stuff. I've issued general fund budget worksheets to the department heads now.
Any questions from Trish? And I'll add to that they have, my department heads will have a deadline for Friday, October 13th. Did you specify time you wanted that by?
No, I can do that. I just wanted to get them
Right.
out to them
Right.
now.
They're supposed to
Yeah.
have the information back to her so I can prepare a budget. And because you have 2 candidates sitting out here so that you'll know, if you don't know already, if you are elected, I don't know if that's good or bad, but if you're fortunate enough to be elected, then it means November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, our budget workshop. That's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, as easy as 1, 2, 3. And we provide you with a meal and at least 3 hours of fun,
At
Okay.
least. Yeah.
at least. Fun, yeah, lots of fun, tedious fun.
I missed that part.
Bring your own calculator. Thank you, Tricia. Appreciate it. So we'll go with Chief Dutra next.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. So just want to talk a little bit about the career skills program. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's basically a military program that allows for military folks to come into the workforce and get some training. And basically how this works is for folks to come in and get some on-the-job training without any cost incurred by the city. Lieutenant Smith has been working with the Army, and specifically the Army's been going back and forth in career days and things like that. But he's come up with some folks that are interested in working on that program. So we've got one active participant they're going to bring into our reserve program, which is a perfect fit for this sort of thing. So can't pay these folks and they come in and get the on-the-job training. So, and at some point after a 6-month period of doing this, they could actually apply for a position if it came open, if they're getting out of the Army or the Air Force or one of the other military ranks. So pretty cool program. So I'll keep you updated on that as we go forward. We do have a new police officer hired for the open position. She will start October 9th at 7 o'clock, and Officer Gregory will come with 8 years experience of law enforcement and 4 years as a correctional officer in the lower 48. So we're super excited for that. We also had the North Pole High School football team. We'd have 70 of these kids come in and came to the police department. I think they visited a few other departments. But Lieutenant Smith did a great little activity with them, had them all put on tack vests and carry a bunch of heavy gear and run a race, and gave the winner some gifts. So it's pretty cool way of getting those kind of kids engaged in what it actually means to be a cop and lug all this gear around and actually have to run. So I think that sent a good message. And we did some career advice and talk about being a police officer and stuff. So kind of was a nice day. We did receive some quotes. I've been working on obviously working on budget, but we received some quotes for a long overdue project of replacing the ceiling tiles in the police department, which are probably over 40 years old in the 80s. They were put in, they've been patchworked, but they're just a mess. And that along with a bid on the cooling system for the department, specifically the server room and an office in that same space, kind of critical to get a long-term solution for cooling that space down. It's always been a problem. We got some short-term solutions we're working on with Public Works for, but in the long term, we're going to have to look at funding both of those projects, and they're running roughly around 35 to 40,000, depending. They're both about that much. So it's not a small endeavor, but something I'm going to try to work into the budget over time. So the statistics, I'll get those out to you probably at the next meeting. We're a little short on admin staff to pull those things together. So Rachel will get trained up on how to produce those. And if not next meeting, definitely the 1st of November, we'll get you caught up on all the stats for the department. They do take a little bit of work. We have been approached by a TV show, and I don't think I brought this up before, but it's called The Force. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's on CMT. I don't really watch that channel, but anyway, they've been in contact with us about doing an episode or 2 with us. So we're working in the contract. Every time we get approached by a TV show on these kind of things, there's always a glitch in the contracts. They don't want to make any concessions, and we don't want to give away our city logo and all of our rights to everything being produced however they wish to see fit. So if we get over that hurdle, Zane seems to think we have. I haven't read the contract since I got back. So once I get that done, we can come up with an agreement and understanding. We can obviously bring it to council, but looking forward to that. It's kind of an interesting little twist on following a particular officer around and seeing how they handle Alaska and what they do with their families and things like that. So we'll see. Keep you posted. I did want to respond to the citizen that came forward about the speeding and stuff on Homestead. I'm going to address this. We'll put a speed box up, get a read on the data there, as well as address it with some active patrols. But I'm interested to know what this, because we haven't run any data points on that road, and it is a fairly long road, and it transitions between 2 spaces, really a dense neighborhood to a kind of an open area. But I'll get some things on that. I would suggest if we do decide to do speed lights, we include some speed monitoring signs. Those things are very effective, but we'll put some attention to that and see what we can come up with. And I do like to recommend to the newly elected officials, come see me if you have any questions or problems, or you want to know about the police department. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. So that's all I got.
Any questions for Chief Guthrie? Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. Lately, there seems to be a lot of loud, either motorcycles or vehicles that have what I'd say is excessive noisy mufflers on them that you can hear them throughout the entire city as they're driving around. Is there any sort of enforcement ability to, I mean, this weekend was incredible. Hearing them all times during the day and night, and it's like, really? Just go home or go away, kind of a deal.
Yes, there is. Yes, we can. And I'll put that out with the email on the speed from Homestead. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, there's definitely a state law for modifying factory exhaust. So
It just prompted to think of something when, we had Officer McBroom, and not Jim, but Sergeant McBroom, Phil. And, somebody, he was doing FTO for someone, I don't remember who it was, but this guy was, doing 88 miles per hour out there, 88 miles per hour. And, he thought that by coming into the mayor's office, I would give him a break. And he wanted me to know he was the first retiree in the city from the fire department, and that he was a tier 1 employee. So we're going back prior to 1989, but he didn't get a break because when Sergeant McBroom came in, when he told me where they first saw the guy doing it and when they finally caught him. And so it's right up there parallel to Homestead Road. So a lot of people get into that, what they call free zone. They just think they can go like they want to. So you know how I feel about all the speeding and people that are driving on our non-motorized sidewalks. You know how I am. And I notice y'all are stepping that up the best you can.
yeah, it's as I always say, it's speed enforcement is a never ending battle. It's constant. There's so many different roads, so much traffic moving through our city. It's so important to have that active traffic officer on there. Of course, we can't really post that full time due to with the law. I mean, the cut we took on that last position, but still, it's just a never ending battle. Our 12,000 vehicles moving through some of these roads a day. So it's.
Did you tell me that some young girl was injured on the path that goes along the Grange down to Lawrence Road?
Yeah, a
Broke her arm?
couple, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, something.
No, I don't know about that incident. What was that about, sir?
I don't have the details
No,
for you.
okay.
I'd heard it just before I saw you, so I
Yeah.
mentioned it. So because you were talking about four-wheelers.
We'll figure it out. We probably, word to the council, we're probably gonna have to come up with an ordinance. We had an opportunity when the legislature presented us with this. And according to the executive director of the Fairbanks Area Street Transportation, they have a booklet telling people what they can and can't do. They said, we're not trying to change behavior. We're just trying to go out there to tell them this is what the rules say, and this is how you should behave, but we can't change your behavior. We can change their behavior if we would actually have an ordinance that prevents it for non-motorized vehicles running up and down on our sidewalks.
And the other option too, Mr. Mayor and
Sir.
council, is we have proposed in the past about enhancing the traffic enforcement by adopting our own fine schedule for
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So it's another layer of something we could do in the future if council so desired.
Thank you,
So
Chief. That's, yes.
Chief, if we did our own fee schedule, do you feel like that would actually be a big deterrent enough to decrease speeding? Or would that just be something else in the wind to just tack on more fees?
I think it has teeth and it definitely hits folks in the pocketbook. If you're setting up residential speed zones or you're having a problem on a particular, you can change, you can make it, adapt that to however what the council seems to be important, that, you can change that. If it's important for school zones to really be enforced, you can triple the fines and you can make handicap parking something that's super important. You want to make sure handicap spaces stay open. I mean, yeah, so yeah, it can. And it basically changes depending on what the city needs. And a lot of cities are doing that.
I'm just concerned of, we're trying to change people's perception of why there are speed limits and then changing behavior due to those perceptions. And it's, if it hits a pocketbook that's an extra $1,000, that's okay, versus someone that, extra $100 is like tomorrow's meal kind of thing. So I was just kind of curious what your thoughts were, or any experience that you have.
Statistically speaking, the citation generally changes behavior.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we instruct young officers. I mean, that's what citations meant to change behavior. And a lot of times they can regulate whether they issue a citation or not based off the interaction they have with people and whether or not a citation is necessary or a warning is necessary, which I've provided statistics, maybe not recently, and I probably should do that now, is provide the data points on how many tickets we actually write versus how many stops we do and how many, how many things that they observe the officers. I mean, it's my very small amount of the number of citations we issue versus verbal warnings. So
Thank you.
I would ask you, do you remember, when we had DOT check the speed on St. Nicholas Drive? And I would have sworn that the fastest segment was gonna be from Fifth all the way down to, St. Nicholas southbound to where Three Bears are going to go. But what was surprising, that had someone going as fast as 52 miles per hour on a 40. But what really surprised me was from the traffic circle here to Fifth Avenue, somebody doing 63 and the average speed limit very close to the high 40s, where it's 30. So that's why I kind of think we should have a unified speed limit on St. Nicholas Drive before that store opens up down there, and just say, make it 35 all the way down, and that should help, but you can't be guaranteed of anything. Especially if they know that there's a possibility of patrol officers leaving the station, coming out to St. Nicholas Drive just to be caught. Maybe they would slow down. I don't know. It's no guarantee. Anybody else? Miss Welch?
So there's one thing I have noticed about your police department is that you do have your officers that are really very good at educating our people out there instead of just coming down on them hard. I appreciate that with my ride along with Officer Bloom, how he spent a long time explaining why it is that we're doing like that. And if the people were acting nice and apologetic about it and honest and genuine about what they were doing, then they would get a warning or just an education on it. But then they also knew that we had an eye out for those people and that we are out there for that. And I believe he even at one point told somebody, well, you make sure you tell your friends out there, the young person that we talked to, make sure you tell them that you can't just ride your whatever on the street or that kind of stuff, So I appreciate the leadership and the education of our officers also to be a good light for our city, not just ticket. We have that part of it, and I appreciate that.
it runs a gamut of changing behavior from mostly education. That's the first step. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good report. Mr. Davy Williams. Danny Wallace, my mind's when me and Davy Williams were with Danny out there doing the snow blowing thing with HC. My head's thinking of that. It's the snow in my head. Let it snow.
Well, good evening, everyone. And like many of you, I've gotten my snow blower out of the shed and I put my mower in the shed. At least that's what we did this weekend. Tonight I'll talk about one special topic and then I'll talk about department activities. Last week I had the fortune to participate in the Alaska Infrastructure Symposium, which was held in Anchorage and hosted by the Alaska Municipal League. They also had the Alaska Federation of Natives, Office of the Governor, Alaska Congressional Delegation, along with the other statewide and federal partners that were at that. It was a 3-day symposium that was held in Anchorage at the Hotel Captain Cook. The intent was to make sure that the municipalities and state organizations knew about the bipartisan infrastructure law and other sources of federal funding. I was able to discuss City of North Pole priorities with state, federal, and non-governmental organizations, and it really emphasized the importance of information sharing at all levels of government, municipal, state, and federal level, especially when it comes to emerging contaminants. That seems to be certainly a key area of interest, and it is a key area of interest for the city, but communication sometimes needs to be improved. Also of note, in discussions with Senator Murkowski's staff, they mentioned that our $2.5 million request for utilities infrastructure support for Brookside Park was moving forward. And if the budget got passed as written, we would get the allocation for those funds, which actually means we can apply for those. We have to meet certain criteria, but if we meet that criteria for Brookside Park, we would be able to get infrastructure utilities support for that. And just the bottom line with this entire event, it was another example of the advantages of the Alaska Municipal League and their ability to sort of bring all of the entities and organizations together that deal with municipal issues. So that was a very good event. And I think most of the council members, you should have gotten an email from me that sort of provided a synopsis of that event. I'll go ahead and talk about the departments. For the building department, we've had contractors doing roof work within the city limits without permits. But when we contact those folks, they are happy to comply. Sometimes it's out of being rushed to get the job done. Sometimes it's out of that they just don't know that they're within city limits. But by code, if folks are replacing roofs, they do need a building permit. Shingles do not. If you're just shingling a house, you don't need a building permit, and this is in city code. But roof permits are there. Again, it's just one thing that's kind of crept up on us in the last few weeks. Also for building, we're continuing to work with the Three Bears folks on permitting requirements, and that project continues to move forward. Those of you that can see, there's significant differences in the area. They're working on the area, and like I said, they're working with us, with DEC, and with the borough, and making sure that they're compliant with their actions. So again, Three Bears is moving forward. For public works, summer paving should be complete, and you'll see that throughout the city in selected spots. And our new snow removal contract is in place as of this weekend with Hubbard Construction, and they're ready for the snow. They've actually showed us their equipment, and they're ready to go if snow comes. Work on the city streetlights continues, and there was talk about Highway Park as far as a possibility for streetlights. That is a project that's on the list, but we haven't had a significant amount of citizen feedback on Highway Park. We did do a survey recently. We did get some feedback there, and then certainly the testimony here today certainly can add to the discussion on whether or not that makes sense for a large street light project or even a small one in that area. So that is something that we can look at. And as most of you have seen, the city lights in the city's downtown core area, those are almost all up right now, although most of them will not be operational till the end of this month. They're waiting on some parts to ensure that the power can be transmitted to those. So they're still working on those. But they came by today and talked to us and assured us that project was on track. But you probably won't see those lights in operation, at least some of them, until the end of the month. And the candy cane light poles, again, they are down right now, or there's 15 of them that are down right now, and they're getting painted. And actually the contractor had to build sort of a new part of their building to accommodate the length of those in order to paint them. But they're still slated to get those back up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And Public Works finished work on the new deputy clerk HR office. Again, it's where the old supply room was. And we're working with Star Electric to get those computer drops installed. And we've also requested, and the fire department has agreed that they'll assist with the furniture installation. But that effort's on track. And then finally, the utility department, we did have an EPA Western States area-wide optimization program visit to Moose Creek and the Moose Creek pump station and the water treatment plant. This is a federal organization that once a year they have a rotating meeting that goes to different areas within the U.S. and they chose North Pole as their meeting for this year, and they did sort of a practical exercise using our Moose Creek pump station, Moose Creek, and then the water treatment plant. They gathered some data, and they're actually going to provide a report, but they used us as a venue to meet and talk about current water issues. Utilities, the water treatment plant also had 3 visits from the North Pole High School chemistry class from Miss Misler's class, and about 90 students toured our water treatment plant in 3 sessions. Then they were all very well behaved. And again, it was a good opportunity for the students to learn about how we process and treat water. And then nothing else significant to report from water and sewer, although the upcoming ballot propositions are certainly very important for our future opportunity to provide clean water for the city. And that's all I have pending any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Who would like to ask Dan a question as well? Then Mr. Skips.
So were you aware of that, our newspaper made a critical error in their, coverage of our, especially Amendment 2, in the newspaper on Sunday or the weekend edition? They actually left out a no or not in there, giving the citizens the idea about that we were going to spend our tax money and our both taxes from property and from sales tax on repaying this loan. I think they did do a correction on it, but if you could just maybe address the fact that we're not going to do that and why.
Certainly, and I have a script for this. I was hoping someone would ask about it. But there's two propositions that will be voted on tomorrow by the North Pole voters. The first one is for a PFAS and emerging contaminants loan. It's a forgivable loan, and we're asking for approval for that. The second one is authorization of the city of North Pole to accept a loan to, and it's not a forgivable loan, but it's a loan to design new water mains for the city, which again, we have very old systems. So hopefully most of the citizens received a flyer in the mail, and on the front side, it talks about exactly what each proposition is. And on the back side, it talks about the details. And the details on these are clearly printed on here and on the ballot. And to be clear, no property or sales tax monies are being used to pay these back. These loans, if these are accepted, if the city does accept these loans, these are paid for out of enterprise funds, out of the utilities funds. So if you're a water customer or a sewer customer, you pay the fee for water and sewer, and those monies are the only ones that goes. This is not associated with the sales tax or with property taxes.
Thank you.
Mr. Skips, next.
Yes, my question is about those street lights that are down. You said there's 15, and I know the bases are wrapped in the caution tape. So what, let's just say, for example, we get a heavy dump in the snow, is there gonna be something, I mean, is there cones or something gonna be put over on top of those? Because if they do snow removal and hit those bases, then now you're in the whole, you know.
Yep.
whole
That's a good point, and we'll look into that certainly.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dan. Well, Chief Heineken, you've been mighty patient there, but we figured you could put it out because you've been on vacation, so.
Good evening, council and Mr. Mayor. So yeah, I'm back this week from being on a couple weeks of personal leave. I want to put out a big thanks to my staff at the fire department, in particular Assistant Chief Chambers. It is very comforting as the fire chief to be able to go out of town. I was not within cell communication for over a week and a half and never thought twice about what was going on back home. And that is comforting to say, because I don't think every fire chief in the world could say that. You know, I have very dependable staff, very competent staff. And when I did get back into the office on Monday, you know, no tragedies, no problems. No, I mean, they gave me a great update of what had been going on, and I'm very proud of them that they absolutely can run without me. That is a wonderful thing to know. But I'm happy to be back though.
We missed you.
Thanks. So winter is back. Today was a very stark reminder. We were very busy this morning. I don't know if everybody's heard the news, but there was a tragic accident that happened out on Johnson Road in Salcha that involved a military transport vehicle. A lot of patients with multiple fatalities. We had both of our ambulances and our battalion chief out on that call for many hours this morning. They did a phenomenal job of running a mass casualty scene. You know, listening to them on the radio from the city here, our staff did amazing jobs. They had fire departments from, it was the Salter Volunteer Fire Department's area. They had Eielson Fire Department out there. They had Wainwright Fire Department out there. They did have, helicopter transport for some of the patients. Multiple, triage patients in the red, multiple in the yellow, and a lot of green walking wounded. There was over 12 people involved in that vehicle. So yeah, it was a tragic day for, this military convoy coming off of the hill on Johnson Road. So really quick reminder that, yeah, the snow's coming. Our roads weren't bad here in North Pole and Fairbanks this morning. They were wet. But at any elevation, I guess the road, it was sticking. We did have concerns on that accident about having to chain up emergency response vehicles. There was enough snow and slush in the roads up there. So that leads me into the next thing is let's get our city employees and everybody around on our roads in winter mind frame. We've got to transition from that dry road driving to winter driving and prepare our vehicles for that and prepare ourselves mentally to be able to drive on icy roads. You know, I was taught way back when, you know, when the roads are icy, it's like you put a hot cup of hot chocolate on your dash and it's sticky and gooey and you don't want it in your dash and you drive to where that does not spill. You know, we've got to get back in that mind frame to drive, to keep that glass of hot chocolate upright. You know, prepare your vehicle, make sure, I mean, right now is the busy tire season, getting tires changed over. Make sure that, you know, your winter clothes are prepared for your vehicles. So if you do get stranded, that you're prepared. It's time. Winter's here. Yeah, and unfortunately this morning was a horrible reminder of what can happen. On a much happier note, let's move on. So I'm pleased with our cooperation with the city and our high school this year. As you've heard from some of the other directors, we've had a lot of participation with our high schools, with the fire department, with the police department, with utilities, with it's really been nice to see them really get out into the community and take an interest. And I'm happy to announce that we're partnering with the high school senior class this year, and they're going to use our training building that is between the fire station and Public Works to do a haunted, what did they call it? Not a haunted house, a haunted asylum. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, they met today. Mrs. Tobin came over with some of the students there, and they went over the building and are making plans, and they're preparing to have it open to the public for the 27th and the 28th to provide a haunted asylum for the public. I think it's going to be great. We've talked about using that building for many years for a haunted house, but to staff one, it wasn't within our realm as the fire department to do it. So when we started talks with the high school and they said, hey, we would love to do something like this, I said, we have the building for you. You know, that building has so many uses. We really get tremendous training out of it. We've had law enforcement do tremendous training out of it. And now it's happy to see the high school is going to get some enjoyment out of that building as well. So mark your calendars for the evening of the 27th or the 28th. I believe there will be a small fee. It is a fundraiser for the senior class. So I believe it's a $5 fee is what they're talking about. And we look forward to helping them, and we're going to participate with them, and it should be maybe we can make this an annual thing. So that's all I have this evening, and be more than happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Chief. Didn't ask the other chiefs because I see them all the time. What do you have that you would consider a necessity or something you'd like to see improved on what we currently have for IT? Because I'm engaged with a facility I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So I'm wondering, do you see any IT pitfalls from the fire departments then?
You know, I wasn't prepared for that question. I did honestly, things knock on wood have been pretty well in the IT for us over there. You know, we've been pretty happy with what we've got going. We're, you know, on the department level, we're looking at some different programs to be looking into, but I don't think that's where you're going.
So I'm looking at more of encryption and security, and are you getting what we're contracted for, what we pay dearly for? or do you
Yeah.
need any improvements? I already know about some other.
Yeah,
departments.
to be quite honest, we've talked about it regularly over the last few years at the fire department, and we're extremely happy with the IT service we've been getting. We know not every department has that feeling, but we absolutely,
I'm getting
if-
that because
yeah.
I never weighed that in with you.
yeah, we have absolutely been happy with the IT service we've had. When we have issues, we do call the help desks. We do get, solutions in a timely manner. We've not had many issues, but I do acknowledge that that's not always the case. There's been other departments that have had some struggles.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, chief.
You're
Welcome home.
Thanks.
So that leads me into, the clerk. And anything you want to tell us about HR?
All right, good evening, you guys. Let's see. So I'm just back from vacation. I'm completely just combobulated, but Emily and I spent most of the day together, and she's trial by fire. So today meeting, tomorrow elections. So yeah, it's been fun. And yes, our new HR person has accepted the job and he will be starting here on October 30th. So we can all look forward to that so that I don't have to do HR anymore. So otherwise that I did complete before I left last week or the week before, sorry. I did complete the sign up for WorkShield. Emily and I will be working with them on scheduling some training so that we're familiar with the software. And then we'll get some software pushed out to, or I'm sorry, a training pushed out to all of the rest of the staff so that they know how to use it and how to go to file a complaint if they so need to. So remember, elections are tomorrow. Don't forget to vote. And that's all I got.
Any questions for the clerk? Or for Miss Emily? Yes, David.
What are
please.
the hours on the voting?
Oh, 7 to 8.
The name that 8 p.m.
If you come here at 7:55 in the evening, I'll be here. I'm always the last person to vote. Been doing that for many years, long before I was mayor. Thank you very much. Emily, have anything to say? Oh, okay. Just checking. So then to the big report from the borough rep.
And this should be the last one you get from me, as I don't believe I'm scheduled for anything else. At least that's what I told them in there. The meeting was last Thursday. I attended in person this time. And the school board, the only thing they really had to tell us was that October is Attendance Awareness Month. So if you have children out there, we're really trying to work on getting people there on time and attending every day. We're already having a big problem with people not being able to read at the grade level, and we have a big push on the reading front. A big part of getting those kids to read, to do their job is to have them in school on time and ready to learn. That's probably the biggest thing that we can do for them. Other than that, just see the website. They will tell you about the special events and board meetings, all there on the website for the school district. The borough ordinances that were discussed, they repealed some management advisory group, public transportation advisory commission has been repealed because it seemed like it wasn't doing anything anyway. So they repealed that. Then they created something they call the Committee of the Whole, which is what we have too, but it's replacing a priorities committee. And one of the things that they were talking about was that sometimes a few people get to set the priorities for the city and or for the borough, and they needed to have more people from the assembly itself actually participating in that. They also had a problem with people being on committees not showing up, and therefore they didn't have a quorum, so they sometimes had a hard time. By making it the full Committee of the Whole, they could get around that. Then there was something very interesting that they actually managed to pass. It was a 5-4, but it's an education investment reserve project where they are taking extra money that's coming in from a whole bunch of different areas they were talking about. This money that we have sitting and it just goes in and sits in the pool somewhere, that they've, we're gonna actually put it into almost like a permanent fund thing. And they could take so much of the interest that they would do by investing it wisely. And there was like 3 different areas that they were gonna take this money from, and that should help. Maybe not immediately, but down the road, just like the permanent fund took a little time to charge it up. But now it's giving money back to them, so that they could be a source for money to help the education of our children for, better making sure we had the money to pay the teachers and keep up the schools and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a nice thing. They clarified a little bit on the eligibility for solid fuel. And other than that, I think there was really nothing else that pertains to our city. I do want to say that I received many kudos and thanks from both sides of the spectrum down there for being there and giving them good reports, and I appreciated that. And so I hope that whoever is following in my footsteps as we go along here, that you will be able to interact with them and give them good information about us, and that you put the best foot forward that we can put forward here, and that's it.
Any questions for the borough rep? Thank you for a report, and for doing what you've done for probably more than 5 years, longer than I've been mayor. I think you've been doing, I'm not sure. Okay, thank you very much. I can tell you the last time I appeared for them. Yeah, I don't know why I remember that. It was Valentine's Day, 2019. That was the day after Jack Cogdill died and Governor Dunleavy introduced his budget. And they didn't like what my report was. So, anyhow, thank you for that. I'm going to go into, I'm going to call it under item 10, ongoing projects report, but this will be fast. I have met with a company called TechWise, and they will help us do an assessment of our needs for our city and what threats that we might be under. I met with the founding president, Jen Peterson is her name. She's up at the Hutchison building on the 3rd floor upstairs from our attorney. I got very good recommendations about her from Jackson Fox at the Fairbanks Area Street Transportation and from Jomo at Fedco, and I'm trying to think of who else. But I don't think they actually know how we work as a municipality. So we don't move at the speed of light. We move at the speed of government. So anyhow, I'll be meeting with them again. I think what they do to do the assessment, they have a one-time $5,000 fee to look at all the things that we really should have here, not just for cybersecurity, but for the way that we have to operate everything that's IT connected to the city. So, but I want to see if that $5,000 will be applied somehow across the life of the contract. So, but that will be coming to you in a formal way. So I'll get the letter sent out in advance of next meeting so we can look at it and evaluate it. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask, would somebody just make a motion for us to suspend the rules for 5 minutes? Somebody's got their hand up? You're pointing? Who's pointing?
Has Trish given her report?
Yeah,
Oh,
up front.
Move to
we're
suspend
not
the
the
rules
first
for
one?
5
Oh.
minutes.
Second.
Okay,
yeah, because.
make it 6 minutes.
Because I know, she's like, well, how come they're so short? Yeah. I don't, everybody gave. Yeah. I asked her, she's like, well, how did she did? I'm like, okay.